Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story that turns something as ordinary as school into a chilling and unforgettable experience. At first glance, schools are places of learning, filled with laughter, friendship, and the daily rhythm of life. But what happens when that familiar environment starts to feel threatening, eerie, and impossible to escape? That's exactly what the story captures, and it's one that has lingered in the minds of readers and viewers for years. The story opens with the protagonist walking through the front gates of their school, and right away there's a sense that something is off. The hallways feel longer than they should, the lockers look older and more worn than they ever did before, and the usual chatter of students has a hollow, distant quality. Even the bright fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, casting shadows that seem to stretch and move on their own. There's no sudden jump scare, no obvious threat, but a slow, growing unease that something is deeply wrong. As the protagonist moves through the building, small, strange occurrences begin to pile up. Classrooms appear and disappear. Hallways twist in impossible ways. A door that was closed minutes ago now leads to an unfamiliar room. It's not just that the school is physically strange, but the rules of reality within it seem to shift constantly. Ordinary objects behave in unexpected ways, like a chalkboard that erases itself or books that contain pages with strange symbols instead of words. The sense of disorientation is constant, creating tension in every step the character takes. The students and staff themselves add to the unease. Some seem completely normal, but their behavior is subtly wrong. A teacher might be reciting a lesson, but the words are nonsense, or they repeat the same phrase over and over with a blank expression. Other students move like shadows, glancing at the protagonist with hollow eyes, whispering things that are almost audible, but never fully formed. There's a sense that the school is alive, watching, and maybe even feeding off the fear it creates. One of the most unsettling aspects of the story is the way it manipulates time. Classes never end at the usual hour. Lunchtimes stretch indefinitely, and sometimes entire days pass in a matter of minutes. The protagonist loses track of how long they have been inside, creating a feeling of being trapped. There's no clear exit, no normal school routine to cling to, and every attempt to leave seems to lead them further inside the labyrinthine building. The environment itself becomes a character, with each hallway, staircase, and classroom holding secrets. A classroom might be familiar at first glance, but upon closer inspection, details are wrong. A student's face might be a little too distorted, a desk may have scratches forming an unrecognizable pattern, or the ceiling may have cracks forming shapes that seem almost intentional. Every part of the school is alive with subtle horror, reinforcing the story's theme that even the most ordinary places can harbor darkness. Fear in this story is psychological rather than physical. There are no monsters or overt threats, but the tension is almost unbearable. The protagonist is constantly questioning reality. Are they imagining these things, or is the school really changing around them? The feeling of isolation is profound. Even when surrounded by others, they are utterly alone in understanding what is happening. This combination of familiar settings and unfamiliar, disorienting events creates a deep and lasting sense of dread. Throughout the story, the school becomes a mirror for the protagonist's mind. Their anxieties, fears, and past regrets are reflected and magnified in the hallways and classrooms. A forgotten assignment might appear on the floor in front of them, or a friend who betrayed them in the past might appear in a distorted form. The story cleverly intertwines real-world emotions with the surreal horrors of the school, making it feel both personal and universal. The narrative pace is steady but relentless. Each scene builds on the previous one, layering unease and tension without relying on sudden shocks. Readers are drawn deeper into the school's mysteries, compelled to understand why it has become a place of horror. The story captures the strange liminal spaces that often go unnoticed. The empty stairwell after the bell rings, the janitor's closet with a faint, inexplicable smell, the echo of footsteps when no one else is around. These moments are small, but they accumulate into a sense of pervasive, almost inescapable fear. The climax of the story does not offer traditional resolution. There is no simple escape or defeat of a villain. Instead, the protagonist confronts the school itself, recognizing that it is not a place but a manifestation of fear and memory. This realization is both terrifying and enlightening, as it suggests that the horrors of the school are not external threats, but internal ones. The story ends with ambiguity, leaving readers unsettled, reflecting on the thin line between reality and imagination, familiarity and terror. The story's writing style contributes heavily to its impact. Short, descriptive sentences create a staccato rhythm, making the reader feel rushed and anxious. Occasional long sentences mirror the protagonist's sense of confusion and entrapment. The author uses sensory details sparingly but effectively. The hum of fluorescent lights, the creak of floorboards, the smell of old books. These details anchor the surreal events in reality, making the horror feel tangible and immediate. One of the most powerful elements of the story is its universality. Everyone has experienced school in some form. By taking a familiar environment and slowly warping it into something terrifying, the story taps into deep-seated fears. It plays on the anxiety of being lost, of not understanding one's surroundings, and of encountering the inexplicable in a place that should be safe. The school becomes a symbol of both nostalgia and fear, evoking memories of childhood while simultaneously transforming them into something threatening. As the story progresses, the protagonist's reactions shift from confusion to fear, then to determination, and finally to a strange acceptance. They navigate the twisting hallways, encounter impossible obstacles, and meet strange versions of people they once knew. Each encounter pushes them further, challenging their understanding of what is real and what is imagined. By the end, the protagonist's journey is not about escaping the school, but about confronting their own perception of reality and fear. Another notable aspect of the story is its use of subtle symbolism. Lockers may represent secrets, hallways the passage of time, and classrooms the weight of knowledge and expectations. Even the flickering lights and distorted walls suggest instability, the fragility of perception, and the way our minds can transform mundane settings into landscapes of horror. This symbolism adds layers of depth, making the story resonate long after it is finished. What makes this story truly effective is its balance of familiarity and strangeness. Readers are drawn in by the recognizable school setting, but kept on edge by the subtle distortions. The story's power lies not in overt terror, but in the creeping sense that something is not quite right, that reality itself is unreliable. This type of horror stays with the audience, provoking thought and reflection as well as fear. The emotional impact of the story is heightened by the protagonist's isolation. Even when surrounded by other students or teachers, they are alone in perceiving the school's true nature. This isolation amplifies the tension and makes the moments of surrealism more intense. Every whisper, shadow, and flicker of light carries weight, as if the school is actively responding to the protagonist's fear. In conclusion, School itself is a scary story, is more than just a tale of a haunted building. It's a psychological exploration of fear, perception, and the thin line between reality and imagination. By transforming a familiar environment into something menacing and unpredictable, the story forces readers to confront their own anxieties and memories. The slow, relentless tension, the surreal twists, and the lack of a simple resolution all contribute to a sense of unease that lingers long after the story ends. It's a reminder that even places we think we know well can hold hidden fears, waiting to be uncovered.